Today is the work session on public safety. We got to hear from fire earlier. Now we get to hear from police. So thank you both. Thank you, Chief Coleman and Deputy Chief Leader, for coming in. We really appreciate you being here. And Robbie, did you want to ask anything else?
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, the second part of this work session, we're going to first go through the Hillsboro Police Department. And then at the end, we're also going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes to give you all an update on the police headquarters. So we've included some information in the PowerPoint. We're at really some exciting point in that process that we've been working on for many years. And so we've got some renderings, and Chief Coleman's going to walk you through that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Coleman.
Thank you, Robbie. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, members of the City Council. We're excited to talk to you tonight about the Hillsboro Police Department. In keeping with the theme of this being a 101, for those of us that went to college, perhaps, we're going to talk at a high level about the operations and then how those operations are resourced at the police department. A few housekeeping items. Just want to let you know that we have built in a time for questions between the discussion about the police department and the building, but we are happy to answer questions mid-presentation if you feel like that's a more appropriate time to ask them of us. Also, we believe you probably got both a PDF and a literal PowerPoint version of this. I just want to warn you, there's a couple of videos in our presentation, and if you have your sound on and you're using the PowerPoint presentation, you might get a literal, you might come across the microphone as well. So just avoiding any moments of awkwardness there, any kind of echoes. So with that, I want to start by introducing the executive staff of the police department. They're going to assist us tonight in our presentation, and then they're also going to be highlighted as we move through it. Really want you to have a good sense of who's leading the 207.5 employees of the police department, dedicated employees who we think do an outstanding job in service of Hillsboro. And this is their leadership here tonight at the executive level. I probably forgot to mention that my name's Jim Coleman. I'm the Chief of Police. I've been proudly serving Hillsboro for 10 years, about 4.5 of that as the Deputy Chief of Police and 5.5 as the Chief of Police. My Deputy Chief is Deputy Chief Mike Leader. He's been serving the Hillsboro Police Department for 17 years. Next to me is our Analytics Services Branch Executive Manager, Leah Turner, and she's been with us for 16 years, the city. Behind me, our Business Operations Branch Executive Manager, Kim Bastey, 9 years of service. Next to her is our Services Division Commander, Jinsey Pace, 14 years of service. Okay, well, okay. I was trying to get you closer to retirement, Jinsey. You're so honest. And next to her is our Patrol Division Commander, Brian Wilbur, with 14 years of service. So as Robbie said, we'll be taking you through two portions. First, the operations, and we want to start with our organizational chart. Deputy Chief Leader is going to take you through the operations of the police department. He's going to be assisted by Manager Leah Turner as they do that.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. I know in January I gave a handful of you new counselor orientation. We covered maybe some of this. Hopefully the information is consistent. We can go into greater depth and things like that. The org chart, there is a lot there. We're not going to go through every box, don't worry. Back in 2022, early 22, we reorganized the police department, bring certain things into better alignment, just kind of lining things up where they make more logical sense as things change over time. So you'll see at the very end of the org chart, you'll see two blue boxes. Those are for Kim Basney and Leah Turner. Leah's on the right, I believe Kim's on the left. And those are mission critical administrative positions is the best way to describe those. They oversee a lot of very technical aspects of the police department. We'll dive into those here in just a little bit. But again, those are headed by professional staff, non-sworn positions. In the black boxes at the top are the two commanders, Commander Wilbur, Patrol Division, Commander Pace, Services Division. And we'll dive into more of their duties as we go. But there's a lot there. If something on that org chart catches your eye and you say, what does this mean? Or what's this acronym about? Please, as the chief said, just feel free to throw it out. Some of these are staffed programs. Others are like more of critical committees and things like that. So with that, moving to business operations. Just introed Kim a second ago. Hey, this has 7 employees, and it covers the really important things that any PD needs to have, which is a way to pay its people, a way to equip its folks, both in vehicles and with equipment. With 207.5 staff, yeah, it is a full-time job to manage things like equipment, uniforms, fleet. I think the only thing Kim's branch doesn't issue is actual weapon systems. So everything else, they would handle the issuance of that. A lot of these are linked in with broader city programs, fleet, finance, IS. I mean, there's broader connections, but we have so much back at the PD that, we have our own in-house fleet coordinator and things of that nature. So the bottom right, a little hard to see, that's our stock room. That's where we store, everything that's not a weapon system that we would issue to uniform equipment to police officers. It's one of my favorite places in the entire PD. I don't know why. It's very cozy. I think it still has the original carpet from the mid 2000s. It's just kind of a cool place. If you're ever at the PD, you want to check it out, we'll get you in there. To the left of that, you're going to see one of our cars. Obviously, it has all blue lighting. That's something that's going to get phased in over time. We did refresh the decals over the last few years. We made some slight adjustments to that to make sure there was still good visibility and all that. But the impetus behind that was just better reflectivity, better safety for the officers, and a little bit of a freshening up as well. Local option levy, we're not, that's probably a different topic for a different time. If Suzanne was here, I think she would echo that, over time, with as long as that levy has been around, I think it's over 26 years-ish. It's been harder to quantify exactly what positions are paid for out of that LOL. So, but we do know that it does cover, about 33% of our budget, give or take. So we've tried to go through and break down what would happen, or I shouldn't say that. We've tried to go through and back and break down generally where those positions might be allocated, general fund versus local option levy. And you can read through that. It funds a lot of our operation, and it lets us do things that other agencies don't have the luxury of doing. So we're grateful for it. It's important, and probably a topic, like I said, for a different time, unless you have questions on that. Services division. So the services division, headed by Commander Pace, is split up into 2 sections. We have the investigation section, then we have the outreach section. And part of our restructuring in 2022, and this actually began in 2021, was to really increase the size of the outreach section. And it is largely focused on community interaction. With some exceptions, it's less enforcement focused and it's more engagement focused. So I'm just going to run through briefly these teams that we have up here. Community impact team. It's 2 officers. It's a full-time team. They are out and about. I mean, they're all over the city, but primarily you're going to find them in the downtown core area. Like right now, Block 67 is sort of their flavor of the moment. They're working on that. We have code compliance officers. We do have 7-day-a-week coverage with code. Those are professional staff positions, but they do play a really critical role in dealing with houselessness, livability issues, and they interact a lot with the community impact team and the bike team, which we'll touch on here in a little bit. Community engagement. Some of you may know we just had a retirement out of there, a 33-year career employee, Erlene Ryman. There's big shoes to fill, and we're working on getting those positions filled. But those are professional staff positions. They really are, in many cases, the face of HPD. I'm confident they're out there right now on the plaza, and they're just, Erlene's retirement illustrated just how crucial they are to this place and how well received they are. The bicycle team. Prior to about 2021, the bicycle unit for about the previous 15 years-ish was a sort of an ad hoc team. We had bicycles, break them out for special events, air show, things of that nature, but it wasn't a full-time team. We got some guidance from Chief Coleman that he wanted us to get rolling on a full-time bike team, so we did that. And we have essentially a long-term, sort of a full-time bike officer. It's a 5-year assignment. And then we have a rotating cadre of bicycle officers that go through, I think it's every 3 months, they cycle through there. So it's an assignment, but it's more of a short-term, get exposure, go back to patrol. And so between bicycles, community impact, and code, that's really, they play a big role in that downtown area. They play a huge role in the Calle Diaz area as well. It's really, really critical. PIO, Public Information Officer, that's Lieutenant Eric. We have a cadre of field PIOs. We have 4 officers who have been trained specifically to handle those things as they come up. We have a sergeant in that role as well. And then we have the multimedia engagement specialist, and you're going to see some of his work. That's a brand new position that we created. I think it was last year. We finally got the position filled, and you'll see his work. He's great. It's not just social media. We wanted somebody who really had the ability to do, sort of videography, storyboards, and so we'll highlight his work here in a second. The bottom right, I think some of you have heard of this case. If you haven't, this is a really, it has a good outcome, but it was it was rough. Essentially, this is the first conviction for, I think it's called involuntary servitude. I almost said indenture, but it's involuntary in the state of Oregon. And what it was, one of our community impact officers, James Weed, a lot of experience. He's been a full-time investigator in the past. And it ended up being really a mix of sort of empathy, officer intuition, and then technical skills. He saw a community member who was selling, I think it was like bottled water and snacks and things like that, right at the entrance to the Esplanade. I wouldn't call him a panhandler. He was actually selling things. But it took Officer Weed a while to really develop trust with this person. And eventually he was able to determine that this guy was being absolutely exploited without question. He was being forced to live in a shack out in rural Columbia County. There was an air tag in some of his property, if I recall correctly, so he could monitor his whereabouts. He had developmental disabilities, collected all of his bank account stuff, his ID. This person was basically left daily to go out and collect money and turn it over to this guy that was exploiting him, for lack of a better term. So Officer Weed teamed up with a Detective Michael Piper, who has since left the department to relocate out of state. But the two of them worked collaboratively. They did search warrants at multiple locations, and the end result, we were able to get the victim into services, get him into housing, and 2 years in prison for the offender. So it was a good outcome, and we're really proud of Weed and Piper and everybody else that jumped in on that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, hold on one second. So investigations, we give you a little teaser of our video there. You can see the allocation of FTEs. I'm going to run through some of these special units just so you have, just kind of an idea of allocations of staff and all that. So the biggest chunk, so to speak, of investigations is our full-time detectives, or I should say. We have 16 detectives. We do have a vacancy or 2 right now. They're overseen by 2 sergeants and a lieutenant, and ultimately the commander. That unit's divided into 2 teams: special victims unit, which is really more family violence, child abuse, and then the violent crime unit, which would investigate, just kind of what the name implies: assaults, adult sexual assaults, homicides, attempted homicides, things like that. We have the domestic violence response team. That's really a 2-pronged approach. We have civilian, 2 professional staff that are engaged on that. And then they also partner up, and we'll get to this in the patrol slide, with the domestic abuse response team on the sworn side, which consists of sworn officers who are able to go out in the field and follow up on complaints and go from there. The evidence unit, super proud of them. They do not only evidence and property intake, but they're also part of our interagency major crimes team. Got a very, very high level of technical expertise, which is a credit to their supervisor, who's really pushed that over the last 5 or 6 years to get them trained. So if we have a shooting, a violent crime, something that involves blood spatter analysis, things like that, they're qualified to get in there and do that. Regional Computer Forensics Lab, we have 1 professional staff employee who is assigned full-time to we call it the RCFL. And they do digital device examinations, anything you can think of, from cell phones to computers to vehicle infotainment. And Commander Pace is also the chairperson of our use of force review board as well. Interagency teams, we do participate in some collateral, some full-time. The full-time teams, West Side Interagency Narcotics team. Obviously, they investigate drug crimes in and around Washington County and target drug trafficking organizations. And then a newer team, the Community Violence Reduction Team. I think somebody asked about that recently, maybe in the last budget. I'm not sure. And that's a relatively new team that's been stood up largely to combat gun violence in Washington County. So the 48 hours video, this, just before we play that, it really speaks to the value of having sort of a mix of career investigators and then investigators that are in there for career development and then cycle through maybe every 5 years, take those skills and go back into the patrol division or anywhere else in the organization. You may be familiar with this. We had a homicide several years ago on the Intel property in a parking garage, and it was a complicated case. There was a lot to it. There were search warrants executed outside of our county. 48 Hours had an interest in this case, and we've received, I mean, the offender's been convicted and all that. This case is disposed of. So 48 Hours came out, and they kind of, they were sort of in the PD all over for, I think, a day or two. And this video is our multimedia engagement specialist sort of following along with them and just showing kind of what they did and our staff that was involved in this. So you're going to see 2 employees primarily in this. That's Detective Devin Rigo, who's part of our interagency major crimes team, was the lead on the case. And then Detective Stephanie Winter, who is a long-term investigator, and she was also partnered up with Detective Rigo on this case. Commander Pace, you may have a cameo in there. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, but I think without further ado, we should play the video. Thank you. So kind of a short vignette there. Again, it was a very complicated case. It was a very brutal crime. And like I said, we're grateful that we have qualified investigators that are really well trained, that were able to dive in there and work this. They worked long days for about a week on this, if not longer. So next up,
Mike, really quick,
sure.
if I remember correctly, that 48-hour special is actually going to air this fall.
September. Yes.
Is that when we're thinking?
Yes.
So you'll hear more about it, and I'm sure we'll send information out to the council when that's out. So
Yeah, just a moment of pride. Not on the cable, on CBS this fall. Set your DVR if you're going to be in a council meeting or something like that.
Ask your grandparents how to find it.
Shout out to Network TV. Analytic services. Leah is here. Yeah, I know. I'm going to introduce you, and she's going to take all this. Some of this is way beyond my technical expertise. She's on it.
Hi, I'm Leah Turner, and I oversee our analytic services branch. I have a first slide to just kind of talk about what analytic services is. You can see our budgeted number of FTE. In addition to that, we have several regular volunteers, including the 8 members of our community advisory group. And we have 3 regular volunteers in records and an intern this year. So we get a lot of support from volunteers, and we appreciate that. In analytic services, we obviously cover data and analytics. We have our law enforcement analyst team, which is made up of 2 full-time analysts and a supervisor. They primarily focus on investigative support. There's a lot of data and analytics involved in any case anymore. Everyone has a phone or 2, and so there's a ton of data that has to be analyzed related to almost every major investigation. In addition, I oversee our police records unit. Our police records unit, I put a bullet point just because I think not everyone knows that unit of professional staff members is a 24/7 operation. So they're always here every day of the week and on holidays to support our patrol officers on the road, but also be available to respond to inquiries from other law enforcement agencies, answer the phone for community members, and help people get the assistance they need. I co-lead our threat assessment team with investigations lieutenant, and our analysts are heavily involved in that team. Also have our police interpreter is in our branch, and that's a unique position. When we initially were creating it, that when the agency was looking at creating it and working with HR, we couldn't even find a comp as far as another police department who had a dedicated interpreter. So we're really proud to have that position. We have our body worn camera program, and that kind of fits in because it is a collection essentially of tons of data and records through that program. As mentioned, the Police Community Advisory Group, and then with that comes our Youth Scholarship Program, which is part of that. So every year, it just closed today. Well, it closes at 11:59. So please feel free to apply if you're interested. But there's an opportunity for a scholarship that'll be awarded, and then that winner of that scholarship is also offered the opportunity to serve during the school year as our youth representative on the Police Community Advisory Group. And then the last plug I wanted to give is that we do have a ton of police data available on the city's website. At the police department data reports and policies page, you'll find several internal data dashboards that are created with data that's available and easy to access for our community, and also links to crime data, our stop data, just all kinds of stuff there. So please feel free to check it out. And on that note of data, I wanted to cover a couple of items, just kind of high level. If you have questions about other kinds of data, I'm happy to either answer that or get that information to you or point you to a dashboard. But there's two kind of department high level data that we thought was important for this 101. The first is response time. That's a measure. One, you probably saw it in our budget document as a performance measure for our police department. It's a way that we gauge staffing and deployment levels for our patrol officers. Is, are we able to get our police officers to those priority one calls, the most important calls like the fire department mentioned? We want to respond in under 4 minutes. That's our goal line, which we are consistently kind of staying there. There is a drop. It looks like there's a, like we magically got faster in 2024. But I would just, that doesn't necessarily indicate that, you know, there was better traffic. Sometimes different call types change from priority 1 to priority 2, so they aren't in the data. So you see that kind of faster response time for priority 1 calls for our neighboring agencies as well. So I think that's more about call types and less about traffic or resources. And the other thing I wanted to just kind of discuss, if you do go to those dashboards or you go to the state's crime reporting website, you might see some higher numbers or raised crime trends that I wanted to highlight for you. So the ones that are in red are increased rates for 2024 that are higher than what we would have expected based on the data from 2026 forward. The reason why it's 2020 or 2016 forward, the reason why it's 2016 specifically is because in the middle of 2015, we changed over to what's called NIBRS reporting or National Incident-Based Reporting. And it's just a different way, it's a different federal standard for counting crimes. And so we don't want to compare, it's kind of apples to oranges if you look before 2016. So I will just highlight some of those. With our increases in, we did see an increase in assaults. You'll notice it says assault offenses. That includes aggravated assaults, simple assaults, and intimidation. When we tried to kind of dig into what's, you know, is there a driver? Is there a common theme? There's really not. It's when we look at, you know, crimes against children or domestic violence or stranger crime, there's kind of increase across the board. So there's not one specific thing. I will say that probably half of our assault related cases are domestic violence related. That's fairly consistent year over year.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the population also increased from 2016 to 24. So what is the
Correct.
percent, like, has it also have the numbers in, there is an absolute increase, but is there a percentage increase as well?
Based on our population growth, I would have to dig into each of them individually and get back to you, which I can
Thank
do,
you.
but I don't necessarily know that off the top of my head. We'll skip down to drug offenses. I wanted to highlight this one specifically because what we're seeing there in the number or the counts is actually an effect of Measure 110. It's not necessarily that there's more drugs on the street per se. So you see where we kind of drop in the years where 110, where there was really nothing we could do. And now that there's opportunity to, our officers are citing and then referring to services, we're counting those again in our stats. So it's kind of a false inflation, and we need to let that settle before we can really determine if there's an increase. The next one that is the larceny and theft category. When we dig into that number, there's several different categories of offenses, but really the driver behind that is shoplifting and organized retail crime, which is part of the reason why we've engaged in focused efforts related to shoplifting and organized retail crime. And you'll see a little video about that on the patrol slides. But that is where we're seeing that increase. And that's been fairly consistent over the last 5 or so years since COVID, right? After COVID.
Can you do, sorry for the interruption. Can you do me a quick favor and just explain the difference between burglary and theft?
Yeah.
Yep.
So burglary means that you forcibly enter into a structure or building to commit a crime. So you can commit a burglary and not actually take anything. You just forced your way in to maybe take something. Does that make sense? Whereas a theft means you didn't force your way into the place. You just took something from someone or somewhere. I also just wanted to point out that we see a similar kind of increase, higher number than we would expect as far as shopliftings reported through our online crime reporting system. So it's not like a false inflation based on we're being more proactive, so we're jumping those numbers up. It's just an overall increase. And then the last one that is higher than we would have expected to see is actually when we dig into it, it's weapons laws offenses. So that's either like a felon in possession of a weapon or carrying a concealed weapon. And as we look at those, most of them in the increase is carrying a concealed weapon, and we're coming across those concealed weapons when we are making an arrest related to one of the other crimes. Oftentimes shoplifting, they've got a knife or something in their pocket, or those assaults. So that's really where that increase is. Generally, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Why isn't sex offenses red here? Or
Because although there was an increase between 2023 and 2024, the total amount for 24 is not outside of the expected range based on our previous ranges. So you can see pre-COVID, that reporting was actually higher. So then we drop in 2020, we stayed a little bit lower, and then we went up. One thing that we did notice during COVID is that we saw kind of a decrease in mandatory reporting from the schools related to, suspected child abuse and those types of cases. And I think that plays into the type of drop that we're seeing. Also, a lot of people were really isolated in their homes. So even if it's, a domestic violence sort of situation with an adult, they maybe didn't have the ability to feel safe to report that because they were just only home all the time. So unlike fire, COVID really did affect all of our numbers, whether it be calls for service, but also reported crimes, what types of crimes got reported. And so we recognize that's an anomalous kind of time, and now we're re-regulating.
Just quickly to answer your question, Councillor Amvery, on the population, it looks like it was about 105,000 back in 2016. So now we're about 111 or 112. So 5 to 6% increase in population,
Right,
since 2016.
yes. Thank you. That's all I have.
And can we just acknowledge the 0 for homicide?
Yeah. Oh, actually, I was going to point that out, and then I thought maybe, oh, my back button doesn't work. But yeah, it is a 0. I would just caution everyone though, because a lot of times you'll see even in national media where people take credits for these drops in violent crimes or that 0 number. Especially with homicides, we don't want to put too much weight in percentages, increase or decrease, because we have so few. We're blessed to have so few in our community. And so 0 is great. We're really glad it was 0. But I couldn't say that it's necessarily something that we did to make it 0. Does that make sense?
I'm really superstitious, so I didn't want to say anything.
Right. Yeah, we're all knocking on wood.
Thanks. So the next person's on you, Counselor Sinclair. So next.
I do think that I wouldn't dare say that it's this is why it's 0, but we also have outstanding investigators who are supported by the kind of work that Leah and her folks do, and we arrest people that commit homicides. We find them, we arrest them, we prosecute them.
Thank you, Chief. Leah. One thing I just want to add, and I think it's important when we talk about growth of the organization, growth of the department. It's 5 years ago, we had 2 analysts, 2 law enforcement analysts. And today we have 2 law enforcement analysts. We have a full-time supervisor, which is really important because when you're getting into things like analyzing data or doing investigative projects, you really need somebody that understands the contours of sort of what you can do and the limits of authority and data collection and all that. So it's really important to have that. And then, of course, we have an executive manager, Leah, who has a tremendous analytical background and really understands the work. And so part of that has just been building out analytics over the last 5 years. It's been key. And I think the data dashboard is just like one example of that. So please check it out. Patrol Division, Commander Wilbur, right here behind us. This is the largest area of the department. And obviously this is where it meets the road. People call 911 for help. These are the folks that are going to respond initially and get things sorted out. So we have our patrol division. We'll get into staffing here in the next slide. But within that division, we have our traffic unit, both motorcycles and 2 cars. We have our training unit, which is a full-time assignment, and then we have some collateral instructors as well. We have our canine team. They are assigned to patrol, but they're dedicated to their dogs and all that. Our transit unit, West Side Transit, the domestic abuse response team. That's really the sworn sort of field operation side of our domestic violence response protocol in general. We reference the professional staff advocates that we have in the investigation slide. Field training program, that's a collateral assignment with the exception of 1 full-time sergeant who oversees and manages that program, but super critical as we're hiring new people constantly. Reserve program as well. We have a handful of interagency teams that are housed within the patrol division or that report through the patrol chain of command. With one exception, these are all collateral assignments. Folks work in their primary jobs and they jump in on these as there's call outs and trainings, things like that. The crisis negotiation unit and the tactical negotiation team really just deploy as a package, as a group. The tactical negotiation team is what you might think of as a SWAT team, just a slightly different name. And the crisis negotiation unit, really, those are the folks that are on those call outs and they're doing what the name implies. They're either negotiating with somebody, they're gathering intelligence, really, really critical part of the operation. And we contribute to that. We're part of the leadership structure and the operational structure on both those interagency teams. Mobile field force might be better described as a crowd management team. It's an interagency team throughout the county. I think we have 1 Clackamas County agency on there as well. Crash analysis reconstruction team, again, an interagency team. We do have one of the 2 team leaders of that team is an HPD sergeant, and they are getting called out constantly to deal with either fatalities or serious injury and assault crashes. They also jump in and help out on diagramming on homicides, attempted murders, and things that are not necessarily directly related to traffic. And then MHRT. Back in 2021, we assigned an officer out there full-time. And thank you. I know tonight we approved the funding portion for the full-time clinician as well. So super important to have a dedicated officer and dedicated clinician. organized retail theft or organized retail crime. You're going to see another video from our multimedia engagement specialist, and it's going to kind of run through a briefing, a mission. It'll show some highlights. It'll show you how our folks interact with those in custody. I think you'll be proud of that and the way they treat people. And that officer up there is one of our it's our community outreach officer, community engagement officer, Alex Mejia. So.
This is a bigger problem and it impacts our community. So as always, thank you. I know it takes a lot of resources from your guys' end too to coordinate this kind of stuff. Team to
No one's just a shit. That's not him.
That's
all right. So go and get that done and keep on relaxing.
That's one of the calls that your heart kind of goes out to them because they are in a tough spot and they're trying to steal for their kids. So whenever kids get involved, it kind of makes it a little more difficult. But ultimately, he is stealing with his children there. It doesn't really matter for what reason, but it definitely makes it a lot more difficult.
Right now, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you're saying that is against the court of law. You understand your rights?
Yes.
You bought 2 things.
No, I bought 4 things.
You bought 2 things.
I bought 4 things.
Okay. Are you gonna keep buying? I'm gonna search your bag.
That's fine. There we go.
Yeah.
Winner.
So those missions, at least up and through yesterday, I guess it expired, but those were all grant funded missions that we had. So that's, I mean, it helps, right? We're gonna run these missions regardless, but it helps when the overtime's reimbursed. You also saw a brief snapshot there of Northeast Precinct. That's where all the cars were stacked up during the daylight hours. And I know the chief's going to dive into that in more detail in the next section, but just kind of highlights it's a tight space. We're kind of running out of room there. Patrol
Deputy
staffing.
Chief, what was in the bags when they said? I forget the.
Probably meth. It could be fentanyl. Probably meth.
Okay.
You know, if it's nothing good. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
I figured it wasn't salt. I just know.
Patrol staff deployment. So our patrol shifts start 3 times a day. We have a 6 a.m. shift, we have a 3 p.m. start, and then we have an 8 p.m. start. Our officers work 10-hour days in the patrol division, 4 on, 3 off, and they're assigned to teams. So starting from the bottom, we have 4 lieutenants. 2 of them oversee a combination of afternoon shift and night shift, and then 2 of them oversee day shift. So those are really the sort of the business managers of the team. Company commander might be something similar to that they would use. And then we have 12 sergeants assigned to patrol, and we deploy 2 sergeants per shift with a 1 sergeant minimum. So that helps because we can kind of control overtime better for staffing vacancies. It's just kind of a more efficient way for us to do it. And then we have 68 officers in patrol. You'll see we do have some vacancies. I mean, we always have folks that are cycling through things like FMLA or protected leave or vacation, things like that. But we should have, I believe, 73 is what we need for our full-time allocation. So as you scroll through this, you'll see most of these numbers are fairly light. Patrol canines, our traffic unit, which includes our 2 parking officers, training, and then we go down the list, so to speak. But the key is the continuity of supervision with those teams. So our employees get really familiar with working together. They understand sort of the nuances of how they might respond to calls or certain situations. And then you have consistent supervision and consistent management from the lieutenants throughout the shift and throughout the week. So,
Are these all sworn officers?
assigned to patrol, with the exception of, and they're not counted in the nets or the minimums, with the exception of the parking enforcement individuals. Everybody else is sworn. Yeah.
The mental health response team, those are sworn officers as well?
The one employee we have out there is. Obviously the clinician's not, but the clinician's not our employee.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So moving on, Jim and I. Let's go through this here. The Office of Professional Standards reports to the chief's office, and right now that's staffed with the lieutenant. We have a professional staff coordinator. We have 2 sergeants, and then we have 2 background investigators. We also have background investigators that are ancillary assignments that can jump in and help out as needed. But their mission is threefold. In order of priority, it's recruitment, policy development and maintenance, and then personnel investigations. We don't tend to have a lot of personnel investigations, fortunately, but when we do need those done, we need them done correctly and with folks that understand really the nuances and the fine points of how to do them, the confines of the law and policy. You know, part of recruitment, when we look at like new hires and retention and all that, we do have, you know, I'm just a guess here, anecdotal, probably about a 10 to 15% failure rate in our initial field training program. But what I would look at is that we have actually a very low failure rate on the pre-employment psychological exam. And when Commander Wilbur and I spoke with our contract psychologist about this, he said, hey, because you guys are doing very high quality background investigations, which he actually sees every background investigation on the applicants that go through. And he said, as a result of that, you know, you're not seeing a lot of psych failures because those folks are being weeded out earlier in that process. So recruitment's a huge priority for us. It's our #1 priority for professional standards. You know, we're not going to compromise our standards in the background investigation or the quality of those investigations. They take time, but we're not going to back off of that. Accreditation lives in the chief's office. We just achieved that earlier this year, and it's a mandate through the state, but we've got it. And then the department wellness program. That's not a full-time assignment, but it reports through the chief's office in part because of the new facility. And we know that we're going to need to make sort of considerations in this new building for employee wellness. It's one of the priorities, and it's just, frankly, it's just cleaner to have the decision-making cycle route through the chief's office while we're in this pre-design or design development stage. So the next slide, hey, another plug for the data dashboard. Please check it out.
I have looked at it.
Oh, Councilor Anvari, go ahead.
What sort of considerations in the new facility are you thinking of for the wellness program?
Well, we can jump into that now, or do you want to?
Oh, there's a
whole. Okay.
Yes.
Hold that thought. Okay, so again, data dashboard. So this is if this was live, I could drill into this and click, and we could go down all kinds of rabbit holes. But this is a basic summary of our complaint overview. And what you'll see in this is that administrative complaints have generally stayed consistent. We haven't concluded calendar year 2025, obviously, and we still have some pending complaints from 24 that haven't been fully adjudicated at this point. But administrative complaints have stayed fairly consistent. I would say the sustainment rate on administrative complaints, those are internally generated complaints, is generally higher than what we would see from the community complaints. And you can see community complaints, they trended down a little bit in 22, 23, 24. They're consistent, and I think we're on track for 25 as well. But if you look at the overall policy compliance across the board, going back to 2021, both community and administrative, it's about 15% that are out of policy. Now, just that doesn't mean that these are egregious. Some of these are technical violations of policy. Some of these are minor issues that can be coached. But they're out of policy, and we deem them as such. But the majority of our folks, when you look at 81,000 plus calls for service, almost 5,000 arrests, we have a really low number of community complaints. We house all this stuff in a centralized database called IA Pro. Our supervisors and managers are trained to make those entries, even on low-level things when they come in. So they're in the system, and we can have those for reference.
Mike, a quick question.
Yeah.
You had said that a percentage of the 2024 administrative complaints haven't been input yet. What type of percentage?
Well, percentage would be hard. I would just, off the top of my head, maybe 1 to 3. They're input, they just haven't reached a final disposition yet, or they're still being worked on. It's a relatively low number. Yeah.
Thank
you. Excuse me. We have a police advisory group. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yep. And what is the complaint process for community complaints? Tell me what the process is.
Well, they can come in a variety of ways, right? And let me start by saying what we don't, and what I think our supervisors are really on board with. We don't want somebody to say, well, this person didn't utter the magic words, I want to make a complaint. Therefore, you know what I mean? We want to say, look, what is the conduct that's being described, or what's the concern that's being described? So typically, they can come in a variety of forms. Typically, those come in as a radio call or to a supervisor or a lieutenant, sergeant or lieutenant, and they assess those. They do the initial intake on those. They make sure that it's entered into IAPRO. Blue team is the patrol facing side of that. So they make sure there's that entry. They assess it. Depending on the severity of the complaint, they're going to staff that with the patrol commander and work on making a sort of a determination about investigative paths. If it's something serious, serious misconduct, allegations of criminal conduct, those would usually run through either a more formal internal affairs route that's structured under the CBA, or, worst case scenario, we don't have too many of these, but if somebody's alleging criminal conduct and it appears that there's some degree of credibility behind it, we might refer that out to an outside agency to investigate. We follow up with the complainant with the disposition letter as we go. So we can't get into specifics of what we did, but we'll explain to them, hey, look, this was your complaint in substance. This is essentially how we investigated it, and we determined if it's sustained, not sustained, unfounded, exonerated, whatever. We would say something like, hey, we took appropriate action with the employee, but we don't get into what that action actually is. Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. No, I was just wondering whether, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. I was just wondering whether or not there's any citizen oversight involvement with this police advisory group, or whether or not they're more advisory, or do they have a chance to review, or is there any role for them to play in this process, or is it all pretty much internal to the department?
Yeah, Counselor, we decided when we put in place both the use of force review board and the police chiefs advisory group that the police chiefs advisory group would not have oversight of review of internal complaints. One of the driving factors in that is that we didn't want to create another group of people who were maybe infringing on some of the other city processes that we have in place. So we were very thoughtful about it when we did it. It seems to be working, and it would take a long meeting to go through again. But a lot of the thought decision making was based off an external independent review of the police department and our complaint review processes and outcomes. So we did bring in an outside consultant to help us make some of those decisions.
All right. Thank you.
I apologize if I missed this. Maybe I had a stroke and missed it happening. But what is a community complaint and what is an administrative complaint? And did I totally just miss you saying that? I'm sorry.
You missed that.
Okay.
I think I didn't say it.
It's all right.
No, good question. Administrative complaints are internally generated. So it can be a complaint from an employee that alleges, conduct by another employee, or it can be sort of the broader police administration saying, hey, this matter came to our attention, an internal matter, and we feel it needs to be investigated. So that's an administrative complaint. Community is anything from the outside, whether it's a community member, an outside governmental entity, even an outside law enforcement agency that reports something. We generally would classify that as community-based. I know you didn't ask this, but the sustainment rate's a little bit lower on the community side. And I think that's largely a result of internally, our folks know the policy pretty well. They have a pretty good sense of what a policy violation is and isn't. So they're more apt to, it's kind of, sort of.
Yeah, if I could lean in, I would just say that those two categories speak to the origination more than anything. because you could have an administrative complaint that would have, if a community member had observed it and contacted us, it would be then fall into the community category. One example would be like officers' behavior and how they drive. If we we have a lot of equipment now on cars, so it's very easy for us to figure out, what the behaviors were on the way to a call or in a pursuit, very high danger situations. And, we occasionally audit those and monitor those. And if we saw something that wasn't brought to us by a citizen, then it would be an administrative complaint, but it could have come from either place.
Do body worn cameras help with community complaints?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, help in finding the truth, not either way, whatever it is.
Yes, they do. I mean, it really gets into, sometimes it's perception. Sometimes you could have a community member that has a legitimate good faith belief that something occurred and the evidence shows that, they were mistaken. So it cuts both ways, but it is really, really helpful. And to that point, again, I know you didn't ask this, Mayor, but we have taken steps to limit muting of body-worn camera footage. It's fairly difficult to mute now. And some of that is those words have a lot of value and they have a lot of context behind them. It's not just the physical actions. So
thank you.
I'm sorry. No. Mike, what are those steps that you all have taken in not muting?
For muting, you have
minimizing.
to hold the mute button continuously to do that. There are times when we do need to mute. I mean, that's just the reality of it is we have times where we're going into sensitive facilities and we need to power down the camera. But for the most part, if your camera's on, we want audio rolling. And that's why to hold that button down is a very conscious act. I think what happened before, it's anecdotal, is you'd have officers that would mute for a bona fide purpose. Things happen and you just forget to unmute. So
thank you.
There we are.
Yeah, we'd be happy to ask or answer any questions you might have at this point, or we can roll right into a discussion of the police headquarters project.
I had a question. So you were showing the car with the blue lights, but wouldn't you have the red and white also?
Yeah, quickly, we we wanted to illustrate that we are moving to all blue lights. It'll take several years. And the reason we're doing that is we have a fleet, not a coordinator because that resides in the Public Works Department, but we have our own internal fleet person who works with Ms. Bassney. And he's very diligent about doing research. He's a former police officer. And we have a lot of emergency light pollution out there nowadays where, fire now uses red and blue lights. Ambulances obviously use red lights. We have a lot of emergency traffic, particularly downtown in Hillsboro, but all over Hillsboro, we have a lot of emergency traffic. So we believe that blue resides in the spectrum that gives our officers more protection when they're on the side of a roadway. And as Chief Downey very graciously pointed out, even when we're protecting people who have just been in a traffic accident and that. And then secondly, we would like people to know that it's the police. If they see us coming down the road, that will take years for people to kind of understand that. But we think it's a move in the right direction to kind of stand out and be more, in a subtle way, informative to the motoring public as to what's coming up behind them and the purpose of it.
Yes. And one more, but does for the complaint, well, actually for the resolutions, are those seen by the city, like by Robbie? Is that part of the process?
I think, there's certainly, we work in conjunction with the city manager's office, human resources, and sometimes city legal advisors. It really depends on the severity of the complaint. That could be somebody in the performance of their duty, but it could also be an internal relation. The term's escaping me right now, but just interpersonal relationships. Yeah.
I would add on that too. I think expanding outside of HPD, every department and all employees, depending on the level of severity of the discipline, also have appeal rights. And so oftentimes if someone is terminated, then it goes through a certain appeal process with a few different layers. And typically with terminations, I would be the final kind of level of appeal. So it's the same. It's slightly different in police and fire because they do have the collective bargaining agreements that maybe change the process to get there. But that is ultimately typically the end of those kind of heavier disciplinary appeal processes.
Yeah, and Deputy Chief just pointed out something that's probably of interest is we do have representation from City Risk on our use of force review board. So that's just a different set of eyes with a different perspective that's involved in that that process. So we find that sometimes you don't always see the broader risk when you're dealing with things that happen in the field. The use of force review board has very specific parameters as to what can come before it. So it's the higher levels of force. For instance, one of them is if we use a conducted electrical device against somebody, commonly known as a taser, if there are multiple trigger pulls of that device, multiple applications of it, that's an automatic situation that would go before the use of force review board.
Thank you.
I have a couple of things. The number that you showed there were the calls and the complaints. Is that normal for police departments to have that really good at numbers? I mean, because it's the level of complaints compared to the number of calls is really, really low. So it's just trying to compare to other departments, right?
Yeah.
I think it really varies depending on the community, but it's not an abnormal number to have.
Okay.
I do think it's another kind of data point that I would use caution with interpreting. And the reason is because a low number of community complaints could indicate you're doing an awesome job, or it could indicate the community doesn't trust you enough to complain to you, right? And so we try to be quite mindful when we look at that low number. We think it's helpful for context, but we also recognize that that can be an element that plays into that. And so we've tried to make efforts to make making a complaint as easy as possible. You can even make an anonymous complaint through the website, so that we are hopefully getting that information. But yeah, the number is not unusual.
Okay, thanks. And this brings me to my second point. I'm probably going to jinx myself here, but I moved to Hillsboro in 2021, and I haven't been pulled over once. It's a really good thing because I average about 6 stops a year before I moved to Hillsboro, and for the most random things, right, you get pulled over. And I think the first time I ran to a Hillsboro police officer and they turned around, I actually just pulled over because I was like, oh, they saw my face. You know, it's summer, I'm a little darker, so I'm gonna just go ahead and pull over. And then just drove through. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's your leadership. I don't know if it's City of Hillsboro. But I haven't felt like I'm afraid of the police here. I don't feel like I'm being harassed ever. I don't ever feel like I'm going to randomly get pulled over for whatever reason. So I don't know if that's the demographic, your leadership, again, the history of the City of Hillsboro, but I just want to applaud you for that because I feel good driving around the City of Hillsboro, where I've lived in Beaverton, Portland, Eugene, Springfield, right? And all those places, they pull you over for random reasons, at least, you know, that's been my experience. So thank you for whatever it is that you're doing. I'm not sure everybody else has that same experience, right? So I don't want to speak for everybody, but for me, it's been good.
Well, I wanted to add, I've just got elected recently, and having done criminal defense work for 30 or 35 years, I know that not everyone is probably on board with that. But I will say that, having been in that community, I did a lot of other stuff too, but I did a lot of criminal defense work. And I will say that agencies in this county each have earned a reputation among the defense bar. And I'm proud to say Hillsboro's got a good reputation. It's not perfect, some bar members, but what I'm saying is I think the professionalism and the way they treat citizens is appreciated. And I think that goes back several police. Thank you very much for your service. But there's been other police chiefs that I think that his city embraced community policing early and embraced engagement early. And I'm so glad to see that it continues to this day. And thank you all very much for the work you're doing.
Great. I want to invite up Jeffrey Caviglia. He's our police headquarters senior project manager. He's going to assist me as we talk about the police headquarters project, and also the capital and development division manager, Sean Morrison, is reluctant to come up, but I'm going to call him out anyway. So they're part of the team that's helping me and the deputy chief primarily in working on this new project. I would say that, it wasn't how we expected it to be, that the deputy chief and I would be what is termed the customers, but it's been an amazing experience, and we've tried very hard to involve our staff as much as possible in the decision making. To start, and I will make this quick, but I absolutely have to call out other city departments, city councils, and the city manager's office for the support in making this happen. It was a all hands on deck effort. It started with Robbie, and then our community and economic development director, Dan Diaz. We struggled to find a place to put a police headquarters. It's obviously the parcels in Hillsboro are at a premium, and Dan wasn't always on my Christmas list, but he's been a great help, and I know I give Robbie a tremendous amount of credit for vision, because this is a parcel that we I will say I had to fall in love with it. It wasn't love at first sight. But I think it's an excellent use of a part of our city that otherwise might have sat unused for a long period of time. It's part of the story of the building, and I'm sure we might get into that. But the building is not geographically centered in the city, and I don't think we ever really intended for it to be that way. We know where we're situated right now, that we are part of the congestion problem for downtown. And I kind of pointed it out earlier. We also feel there's an emergency traffic congestion in downtown Hillsboro, particularly on 10th Avenue, with a hospital, fire station close by, the sheriff's office close by, and us right there. So we actually think in a lot of circumstances that 3.5 minute response time might actually be helped by being close to a main artery like Evergreen. So that's part of my romance story with this parcel. And I want to hop into where we're. Oh, Jeffrey, go ahead. Yeah, so quickly, we currently operate out of multiple police facilities. There are actually 3 primary ones. One that isn't listed, but I'll talk about quickly later, is that we are in on Maple Street in the former Public Works building, and that's where we house our training unit. That's been it was a 1-year situation about 6 or 7 years ago, and it's just, we're still there, and it's a monument to ingenuity is what I would call it. They've done a great job of making that workforce to the degree it can. We obviously can't use firearms down there. We don't have a driving track and things like that, but we've kind of built a dojo and some other things that help us with some of the other things our officers have to train on. This is our where we house the majority of our staff, most of our professional staff. Professional staff just refers to any member of our police department staff that isn't a sworn police officer, if we didn't point that out earlier. We own this property, but it does have some serious security issues with it. We have, unfortunately, our officers have had to use deadly force twice in the last 5 years at this location because of circumstances that naturally, when people have issues, sometimes they bring them to the police department. We also have had some homicides in the shared parking lot, or a homicide. I'm sorry, I don't want to make that sound overly dramatic. But the situations are not where it's located. It's just that it provides no buffer zone, no ability to create safe spaces for employees we can be on top of a problem in a matter of moments, and it may not be a police officer who's there to see it and be part of it. So it definitely has some drawbacks. Next slide, please. And then we lease our East Precinct, which is on Cornell Road in Tannisbourne. We did have the square footages up there for you. I think this slide didn't get them, but I wanted to essentially point out that we are building a bigger building for growth. I believe it's in the 15,000 square foot, bigger than these two combined, right, Josh?
Yeah, it's gonna be 67, which is 17,000 more than West and East combined is 50,000 square.
So we are currently scheduled to vacate this building in August of 2027, and the funds that we send towards the lease are part of the overall package of how the building pencils out. So we run primarily our East Patrol, our transit police operation out of here, community engagement team, and our code compliance team out of here. We are this building does not entirely belong to us. It's shared with other businesses. There is no security parking in this area, so we do occasionally see vandalism to our vehicles, and anybody can walk right up on personnel. So, next, please. I took 3 pictures of situations that I just wanted to quickly tell you, like some of the limitations of our retrofitted building presents to us. And I bought this pointer and I really want to use it. So I'm just gonna point out right there is yes. Yeah. I told people it's really tough when we try and find things with the mouse. So I'm going to bring a laser pointer. Just don't look into it. There's a warning label about that. That's where our desk officer sits at our West Precinct.
Could you show us where?
Yeah, yes, right here. Yeah, and this is our records window. This is our public lobby. Going back here is a public restroom, and then it leads directly in to the secure part of the police department. There is no protection for our desk officer there at all. And that's police officers can definitely protect themselves. They're not China dolls. We train them well. However, there are some, you just don't know what's walking through the door. It is we do know that there have been many cases of violence in the lobbies of public buildings. So it's a concern, but some of the less obvious concerns are we have criminal justice information computer screens that are right there that are supposed to be completely walled off from not only the public, but from each other. We're not supposed to be peering into each other's work. We all have to have what's called a CJIS clearance to do that. This offers, our officers have to log out of the system anytime they might leave that desk for any short period of time. And then secondly, you can see, we want to accommodate people that have to bring their children with them. There are some very unpleasant conversations that that we can't control that happen with our desk officer and easily overheard. No privacy afforded for the people who might be having those conversations under this setup. So we will be fixing that. This is, believe it or not, this is our evidence room. The way this works, I'll try and be quick. These lockers, after hours, on the opposite side of this wall, our officers put evidence in it when our evidence unit is closed. And in the morning, our evidence personnel will open the other side of the locker on this side in the evidence area, and they'll process it on this very high-tech table that you can purchase for yourself at Costco, Fred Meyer, Walmart. Not an ideal working surface for all kinds of evidence. We even have to use one of our community rooms when we have people view evidence. So if we have defense and prosecution come to our department to view evidence, we have to set aside a community room where they can come in and look at it. We don't have that kind of, probably goes without saying that some evidence is not the kind of stuff you want to have out for public viewing. It can be traumatizing and very personal. And you can also see that, oh, that's not, copier workstation right here where we're bringing in evidence. So not an ideal situation. One more example on the next slide. These are our interview rooms. So because these are windows with blinds on them, and because they are not soundproofed, if you walk past them while we're conducting an interview, you might be on camera, and if you say something, you will definitely be on the recording, because the equipment is much more modern and capable than the construction is. So we have to literally stanchion off our main hallway at West Precinct. This is the main thoroughfare for personnel, and they have to walk a different route whenever we have somebody in there for an interview. We will definitely upgrade that. Next slide, Joffrey. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Joffrey, and he's going to talk about some engineering stuff. So, yeah.
All right, Geoffrey Cavulio with Public Works. I'm here with Sean. He's on the other side of the table, and we'll be talking about this project, and part of it is really to address the pain points that Chief Coleman talked about. And the big picture, we have a number of design themes that are driving the design process. One of them is equity, then there's operational resiliency, there's operational efficiency and functionality, there's wellness and human health. I know there's a question that was raised about wellness, so we'll talk about that. And then last but not least is community connectivity. So all these themes sort of define what the future HPDHQ is going to look like and what it embraces moving forward. So just for site context, this site is by Jones Farm, Intel, thereabouts on 25th, Northeast 25th Avenue. Again, just to remind everybody, this is in Oregon, just for the sake of it. And as you can see, Chief, I may borrow your pointer then.
Bottom.
This one, okay. Yeah, so this is the site, and we're gonna be on the south side. This is one tax lot, and we have wetland right there, so it's gonna divide the land into two portions, and we'll be on that south portion of it. So this is a more landscape-like design, trying to show you the site itself, the building, and this is going to be our secured parking right there with access from Northeast 25th Avenue. And this is a public facing parking or plaza, as well as the main entry, community room, and a huge meeting room as well. And then we are trying to partner with Intel to have a secondary emergency only access on that end of the site. And as I mentioned previously, the upgraded HQ is going to be about 67,685 square feet. So that's a 17,000 increase from the current combined two precincts. This is a more detailed layout, trying to call out the different spaces, and we sort of color coded them so that you're able to sort of see where each space is. We have, this is more the public facing area, and we have a covered outdoor space as well for a part of the wellness, and we're taking advantage of being close to the wetland with using what we call the biophilic design. This is integrating nature into the project itself. And then we have a public facing plaza as well as parking to the northeast of the site. And again, on the secure side, we have our Sally port right there. And this is going to be part of the resiliency program where we have redundancy in terms of energy for the building. This is on the second level.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
And what is a Sally port? Because I've seen it twice now, and I have no idea what that means.
It's essentially it's where you would drive your patrol vehicle into. It's a garage is the best way to describe it. Close the garage doors. The adult in custody or juvenile in custody is taken out of the car, go to the holding cell. It's kind of a throwback term. I don't know where it originated. We have a former.
I can have that for next.
We have a former corrections deputy up here who might know the history.
I don't.
You don't?
I'm Googling that now. So, all right.
All right. Okay. And this is the second level. We, as part of a wellness, we have a fitness area, and then all these are locker rooms. We have a partnership with TriMet. The area highlighted in yellow, that's one of the spaces, and they have a conference room that they can share with HPD. And then we have some open office areas. And if you're looking for Jim and Mike, they'll be in this corner right there. So the next is trying to show some artistic or realistic images of what we anticipate the design to look like, the finished product. And as you can see, this is not very accurate, but this is where we have our wetland. That's gonna be facing northwest. But the most important thing is, as you can see here, we have a back area where you can have outdoor activities for HPD staff, as well as if there's a family event, this will be some area they can have those types of activities. And then this is a more public facing area where you can receive the public, and also you can sort of mingle with people coming to do business for the HQ. Okay, the next one. This is another rendering trying to capture how it looks like in the evening. This is part of the plaza, and one thing we are doing is as part of defensive design, we are having these types of features whereby they're not just landscape, but also they prevent people from driving into the building without needing to put like a wall, or just using design features. And they're staggered in a way that it makes it uniquely entertaining and exciting to be out there and about, but also it's a dual purpose for the sake of safety and well-being of the officers. This is another one on the north side showing the covered outdoor area. So this is a dual function. It's an area where you mingle, but also above it, this is all solar power. So it's going to be part of a sustainability program. The solar is going to be part of the roof, and but also it's going to serve as a sitting area. And then as part of the retaining wall, because on this area it's going to be like about 9 feet of a drop because of the wetland area. We've integrated seating as part of the retaining wall, so it doesn't just serve as a wall; it's dual function. This is another view looking from the plaza, and I think one thing that you can see is this huge tree here. We got some feedback from City Manager Robbie to make sure, especially in this area, we have mature trees, so that when the facility is done, at least it has a semblance of livability. Then we can have the smaller trees on the other side. So this is going to be part of that big picture design effort to make sure we connect the facility to nature, vegetation, trees, all that landscape being part of that exercise. Then this is the most important. Money matters. So we've been tracking the project cost, and we're working towards bringing the cost down. Part of that is trying to take advantage of different design aspects, as well as trying to bring in. We brought in the GC, the general contractor, early on in the process, such that as we work with the design team, we're able to work through things like constructability review, just to make sure work we are designing, we can actually build it. And secondly, they have more connection to the marketplace, so we know those materials will be available when we need them, systems will be available, and also work through issues of tariffs, just in case, so that we sort of take away that risk for long lead items. Things like switch gears, we've seen those have been very problematic in terms of procuring. So trying to have procurement of long lead items early on in the process is going to safeguard the project. And as part of this is what you're seeing is both construction and soft costs. And soft costs involve things that are not in the control of the GC, things like permits, furniture procurement, all the things that we as the owner need to procure for the facility would be covered under soft costs.
Sorry. And I'm assuming for like it's built for seismic. And is there a high rating that it's built to?
Yes, this is a level 4 building, so it's supposed to be able to survive the big one. And when we talk about operational resiliency in one of the themes, it speaks to that. The building will be able to survive. It will be able to operate from that building and respond to emergencies, and be able to serve the community. And this slide talks about other areas where the HPD has presence. As part of the South Hillsboro Fire Station, we'll have presence there, like a small little office where HPD has presence. Too blind there, I can see. Is that East Downtown?
Yeah, I can talk to this slide,
Yeah.
Jeffrey, if you want me to. Yeah, we just 4 areas that we are planning and or already have a footprint. The Station 9, thank you to the fire department for accommodating multiple city departments there. It yet to be determined, but we will have a location, and these are small, almost maybe not storefronts, but that kind of level where we might, for instance, downtown run our bike squad or our transit police out of, closer to their working environment, so to speak. In West Downtown, we have the previously mentioned Maple Street training facility. So we have a facility down there. And then we've been working with the new Family Peace Center on their construction project in Tannisbourne, and they're providing us with a place where our officers can, be a secured area where they can write on, again, those criminal justice information computer systems and our records management system and privacy, and not have to come all the way back to the headquarters, which we realize is in, the northern section of the city. One thing I wanted to mention, and we're very close to the end, but in those designs, and particularly well-being, I think we all know that when you set your design principles and your focus areas, that sometimes they can bleed into each other. And I think a lot of our construction and our ideas, when we talk about well-being, sometimes we can think that's only for the employees, but we're trying to build a facility that has the same kind of characteristics as some of the other newer construction, like Wingspan and Hidden Creek. And we want to create a police department where we'd like to surprise people that have to come there, that it doesn't feel so much like what they were expecting out of a police department, not feel like a fortress, not feel like we're afraid to interact with them. So the security features are very significant, but built into the design and are part of the features of the building. One of the things I'm excited about is we know there are people who have a lot of anxiety about interacting with the police, particularly coming to the police's home. And those include witnesses and victims, or even people that need to do business. We are going to have a lot of areas where we don't even have to go inside the building, along that retaining wall, for instance, that Joffrey spoke about, where we can meet people out there. We can talk with them. We can interact with them. We don't have to bring them in and subject them. That is the case right now. And it's why our people are amazing. Despite their surroundings, they do put people at ease for the most part. And we're looking forward to that being part of well-being, not just for us, but the community that has to interact with us as well. Unfortunately, the police headquarters cannot accommodate most of our training operations given the square footage limitations. And then there are characteristics of the property that don't provide for it. So we will continue to have to use Maple Street. If we did build a new, if we added it to the headquarters, or if we had to build it somewhere else, we would need to incorporate classrooms. A mat room is just where you do the defensive tactics. It's kind of like if in high school where the wrestling took place to try and prevent injuries. We currently rely on a private provider for our firearms training. That's always in jeopardy. We share it with many other police agencies, and it's just not it's about a half-hour drive there. It probably cuts about 2 hours of training off of any day that we send officers to firearms training, just in the transit back and forth. And we don't risk with, I won't say they want us to build a vehicle track, but we do have a lot of damage to city property where, sometimes we can point back to the level of training that we have people. It's just, I think a lot of you have been on ride-alongs. It's not easy to see out of a police vehicle, and we need to practice certain low-speed things. This is not the Brickyard. It's not Daytona. It's not high-speed stuff. It's just, to do some maneuvers. Generally, we are at the Public Works building. We are struggling to continue to make that a usable space. So we just want to acknowledge that it was always our goal to solve all the police department's facility challenges in one project, but it just didn't pencil out at the headquarters. So, yeah.
Yep. So the next one is going back to the project, sort of give a timeline where we are and where we're headed, and where we see as sunset. So right now we are at 50%. I want to say since we made the slides, maybe now 60% design development. And if all goes well with permitting and everything, we are targeting to get early grading work started this coming fall. And with grading, it's not the building itself, but it's preparing the site for the building. And then we have groundbreaking in the spring of next year. And the idea is to be able to move in by summer of 2026. But to get there, there are these other steps below there. So we have to do the early work and approvals for that. So we'll be coming before finance committee as well as council for approvals to get those. So we are targeting to maybe come twice for the early package, and then we'll be back again for the full GMP approval for the project. And timing wise, if we do late summer for the early package, then we target late fall, early January next year for the full GMP. So we're working with our partners just to make sure we get the right numbers, get estimates, we get all the trade partners onboarded, but also do some market research, see what the market looks like and how that boards for the project itself. So spring 2025, 26, I can see that, so blind. 2025, is it
26. Yeah.
Yeah, 26.
You're right, though. It says 2025.
Oh, sorry, yeah, 26. Yeah, sorry about that. Should be when we start construction, and then as Jim mentioned earlier, our lease at East Precinct is sunsetting at end of August of 2027. So that's like within our critical pathway, just to make sure we are done with the project and moved out of East Precinct before the lease is expired.
I'd just like to tack on a little bit here. So the type of delivery method that we're using is referred to as CMGC. So it means that we are hiring a construction manager as a general contractor. And so right now where we're at, we've hired a designer, and that's DLR Group, and they've been doing the architectural design. And then we also brought on Swinnerton, who you might recognize. They built our community center at 53rd, and they also built the wingspan project. They're really skilled at integrating mass timber and those types of elements into our facilities. So they'll help beautify the police department. You'll notice in a lot of the renderings, you see a lot of squares and rectangles, and I've been talking about this. And that's really a tactic that we use to help make the program and the cost more efficient. So we really challenged the design and construction team to hit our target budget. I think just a few months ago, we were well over $100 million with our budget, and we challenged them, and they've been using the target value design process, and that's been really helpful in driving that cost down to our goal. And we were committed to not moving forward until we hit that goal in this project. So with this delivery method, though, right now we're in design, and we're preparing kind of like this summer, fall, winter for quite a few approvals. And so we're going to really crunch this summer to get ready for those. But what you'll most likely see, what Joffrey was describing, is an early work package that would include like our site grading, deep foundation, deep utilities type of work. And so that would come through finance committee and then council for approval. And then shortly after that, we're thinking probably a 2-month gap. So that will get the construction team mobilized and start working during the dry season, which is generally a lot cheaper to construct during the dry season because you don't have to do a bunch of dewatering activities and just manage sheet flow and turbidity all over the site. And so that will get us to about December, January. And then at that time, we would most likely come back with the full GMP. And the GMP is the guaranteed maximum price. That's the contractor's commitment to the project. And now we move the risk from the city to the contractor. That's that price tag incorporates that. But in addition to that, we also have the balance of design and some construction administration from the architect. So they will stay with us during construction, and they'll consult on any design changes that need to happen, things like that. And then the other part that's not really being discussed either is the FF&E. That's the furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. That's basically all the things that are attached to the building. The city is going to manage that part of the scope, but that will also come with the GMP approval. So really, the GMP approval is going to be the balance of the rest of the project after the early work project is approved. And happy to, if there's any questions too. I know that this part is pretty technical and there's risk associated with it. So we would be happy to answer any questions too, if there are anything specific with the process that we're going to use.
Questions?
If I could just, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilor Harris.
So I'm looking at the floor plan, the community multi-purpose area. What community activities do you anticipate occurring in that space? Or is it going to be largely used for department activities? I don't know that your current facility has anything like that. So I'm wondering what the vision is on that space.
Yeah, we do hope that it's used by the community. We know that there's a lot of pressure on existing meeting spaces for the city across the board. So we're certainly going to make it available. It's outside our highest security zone, counselor. So it's a lot more accessible than the rest of the building. And we think there's some aesthetic features that are, we certainly plan on trying to attract regional training to that place and host it. It's a cost savings method to getting training to your police department. And we would do police functions there that would, in addition to encouraging people to come there, we would free up other spaces and other facilities for the city, by which we are heavily reliant on and a big user of right now.
And to follow up on that, I know by nature of the use that police department buildings are very expensive to build. This one pencils at about $1,370 per square foot for soft and hard costs, not including land costs. And I was looking at those pictures, and I'm sure the design, I'm not trying to redesign, I'm just asking questions here, but it looks like maybe the community room multi-purpose area, is it built to those same standards? And is there a need to have it built to those same standards if it's just a community room or a meeting room?
So what I have to say is that it's one building. It's gonna be all level for seismic. And all of it is just one unit. But in terms of, if we're talking about fit and finish, those are artistic impression of the building. But as we go through and research throughout the cost, those are where we have opportunities to figure out what materials make sense for the project at the affordable cost.
Yeah. Sorry. Do you mind if I add a little bit? So we did do some analysis though on like what were the essential functions that would fall under that resiliency category that needs to be housed within that main facility. And it's quite complex in that it's more than just the essential function. It's how the facility flows with the police department, and really what needs to be centered around like patrol and investigations, and what needs to be part of that total picture. So you notice though that we pulled out the scope on training, evidence storage, that type of thing, because those are not generally functions that need to be housed within a level 4 facility. So we did look at the project in that matter and tried to really cut down on the amount of square footage that we're building in that $1,300 per square foot range that you're describing.
That was why I asked the question. Yeah. Is because I looked at this and I knew you guys had pulled some of the stuff out that wasn't level 4, is that what you call it, type building. And I just wondered if a community room fell within that category if we come to a budget crunch sort of thing, or whether you keep it on the site because maybe it's good to have one, but could you do it as a separate building that's not a level 4 building? I mean, there's some options out there. I'm just throwing out there to, if we come into a budget crunch. But thank you for the information. There may be a good reason to have a big room if there's a full rip Cascadia earthquake, right? That's level 4. I mean, that might be a good reason to have it, but just curious.
I was going to actually say the same thing to that last point. Councilor Harris is I do think there's some value there. We don't have many level 4 facilities, and hopefully we never need it. But if the time comes that we do, it'll be nice to have. I will address also one thing that was mentioned about, the training and evidence storage. Even though we're not accomplishing a couple of those things in this building, we are exploring that. I just want to make sure you all know that that's something we're looking into. We do have some ideas that I think are going to work really well. It will be, to Councilor Harris's point, much cheaper to build those where we're looking. It's not a big secret, but we're looking at the current training facility over on Wood Street, where our fire training facility is. There's some space there, and it would be significantly less expensive to build or potentially retrofit some buildings over on that site that would be able to accomplish everything that we just talked about, including potentially like a gun range. It'd be really nice to have that. There's a lot of reasons for that, and they're also kind of expensive. So those are all the calculations that we're kind of looking into right now. And so we do have plans. I just want to make sure you all know that, we're not just giving up. We have plans for how to do that stuff as well.
Just the 2-hour travel to a shooting range alone would help justify getting one here, I think, so.
And I also want to add a little bit to what President Harris was conveying. I appreciate that conservative aspect of the building, but hope is not a strategy. So the type 4, I can appreciate that there's additional space for being a public building, a city building, in case there is a Cascadia subduction earthquake. So that is a comment. And I appreciate it.
Any other questions? So thank you so much for the briefing. Thanks to all of you for coming in and going through everything so thoroughly, and including the new headquarters. So Robbie, do you have anything else?
Really quickly, since Chief Downey's in the back as well, I've been looking forward to this night for a long time. Our public safety personnel are second to none. I hope you saw that tonight. It's something we can all be proud of, and you can be proud of. Police and fire do an amazing job in the city. So tonight really highlighted what they do, and also specific to this project, this has been really complicated. I've been working on this, I don't know, 7-8 years. We've been talking about this. Previous councils have had this as a council priority. So it's really refreshing to see pictures, and we're getting really close. So we're excited. So thank you.
I do have one question. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. I'm sorry, you guys. It's only because it's a separate topic, but because you're here. With today being July 1st and there being 2 new locations for our camping ordinance, because the locations are in our downtown corridor, I'm wondering how long do you think it's going to take to help our public transition, being able to rest from Main to Oak and 5th to 7th, because those are the 2 main locations where the campsites are changing from the 600th block.
Yeah,
last
no
67.
problem with the question. Thank you for asking. It is I know there's a lot of members of our community, business owners, and that are very concerned about that. I can't really venture a guess as to how long that would take, but I know that we have a consistent group of officers and code compliance folks that communicate with them constantly and consistently about trying to help them get off the street first and foremost, and trying to help mitigate the impact on residences and businesses in the area. I think in some ways, Counselor, we're not sure how they're going to disperse given some of the things that are going on there. So we're daily contact trying to figure out, and then in a lot of ways encourage them to do it in a way that doesn't adversely impact the other things. So I think we're in a very heavy transition period. This is transitioning to, what we're really looking forward to at the police department with the city's project on housing for homeless. So I will be working it hard.
And I didn't say that to mean that we're in a hurry. I just know that today is where that ordinance changes. And I just wanted to inquire because that is a transition. I do want us to be mindful to our houseless community, and they do need a place to rest. And I know it's a very populated area. So there's 2 sides of the coin. And I just wanted to inquire about the timeline. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.